The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. They called themselves the Guardians of Civilization. They said they brought order to chaos. They believed they were wise and kind and fair. They were none of these things. The Council was made of three great powers. The hegemony controlled the inner systems. They were tall beings with silver skin and four eyes that could see heat and light and things humans could not name. They believed they were the most intelligent species in the galaxy. The Dominion ruled the outer reaches. They were massive creatures with armored bodies and claws that could tear through metal. They believed strength was the only truth. The collective held everything in between. They moved like shadows, their bodies changing shape to match their needs. They believed in control above all things. Together, these three powers had divided the galaxy like a pie. They took what they wanted. They destroyed what they did not need. And they decided which species deserved to live as equals and which species deserved to serve. Earth was not considered equal. The Council had found Earth 200 years before first contact. Their scout ships had watched from the darkness beyond the moon. They had seen the wars and the pollution and the endless fighting between nations. They had laughed at the primitive creatures who could not even stop killing each other. Resource World 7231, they wrote in their records. Native species shows basic intelligence but lacks unified governance. Recommend harvesting when convenient. Low priority. For 200 years, Earth remained in that file. Forgotten, unimportant, just another world waiting to be used. Then the came. Commander of the Dominion arrived with 17 harvesting vessels. His orders were simple: take the water, take the minerals, take whatever biological samples seemed interesting. If the natives resisted, remove them. Did not expect resistance. He had harvested 37 worlds in his career. The primitive species always did the same thing. They sent radio signals begging for mercy. They fired their simple weapons at his ships. They watched their cities burn, and then they died or they surrendered. Humans did something different. When the ships entered Earth's atmosphere and began draining the Pacific Ocean, the nations of Earth did something they had never done before. They stopped fighting each other. In 12 hours, every nuclear power on the planet agreed to a single action. In 24 hours, they launched everything they had. Received the warning from his sensors 3 seconds before the first missile struck. He had time to feel confusion. Nuclear weapons were banned across the galaxy. No civilized species used them. The radiation poisoned everything. The destruction was too complete, too terrible. Humans did not care about civilized. The explosions lit up the sky like a second sun. 17 vessels became 17 clouds of burning metal. Died still trying to understand how a species without space travel had killed him. On Earth, people watched the fire fall from the sky. They knew more aliens would come. They knew the galaxy would not forgive this. But for one moment, they did not care. They had fought back. They had won. The news reached the Galactic Council 3 days later. Ambassador of the read the report 7 times. He was old, even by his species' long standards. He had seen many things in his 400 years. He had never seen anything like this. They used atomic weapons, he said to the council chamber. His voice was quiet. Inside their own atmosphere, the radiation will poison their world for decades. Then the problem solves itself, said High Speaker Eth. He was the leader of the council, so old his silver skin had turned to gold. They will destroy themselves. We simply wait. They will demand revenge, said the representative. Its form shifted as it spoke, showing anger in colors humans would never see. 17 ships, 3,000 dead. They will glass that planet. Oz shook his head slowly. I do not think we should do that. The chamber went silent. No one questioned this recommendations. No one suggested mercy for primitives. Explain, Eth commanded. Oz pulled up the sensor data from the battle. Look at the timing. 17 missiles hit 17 ships within 4 seconds of each other. These humans have spent their entire history at war with themselves. They have different nations, different languages, different leaders who hate each other. This is well documented, Eth said. It is why they were classified as primitives. Yes, but in less than one day they united completely. They coordinated a perfect strike across their entire planet, and they did it knowing the cost. Us let that sink in. They poisoned their own air to kill us. What do you think they will do to us when they have nothing left to lose? The representative made a sound like breaking glass. They are trapped on one world. They have no ships, no faster-than-light travel. They are insects. Insects who just killed 3,000. Os changed the display. Now it showed Earth's surface. Look at what they are doing now. The council looked. They were not celebrating. They were not mourning. They were working. Thousands of humans swarmed over the wreckage of the ships. They were cutting them apart, studying them. Teams of scientists worked day and night, taking apart every piece of alien technology they could find. They are learning, Os said. Fast, too fast. Our projections say a species at their level should need 200 years to understand engineering. They are already building copies. Then we destroy them now, they said, before they become a threat. And prove that resistance means death, Os asked. There are 10,000 primitive worlds in our territory. If they see us exterminate a species for fighting back, how long until they all decide to fight? The council debated for 6 hours. In the end, they chose what they always chose, the safe path, the easy path. They would quarantine Earth, surround it with sensor stations, block all signals in and out, let the humans poison themselves with radiation, let them fight among themselves again. In 100 years, they would be forgotten. They are only human, Eth said as he sealed the order. How much trouble can they really cause? Os said nothing, but as he left the chamber, he looked one more time at the images from Earth, at the humans working through the night, rebuilding, adapting, refusing to stop. He had a feeling the council had just made a terrible mistake. He was right. 15 years passed in silence. The Galactic Council watched Earth through their sensor stations. They recorded every radio signal, every satellite launch, every movement on the surface. For the first 3 years, they saw chaos. Nations blamed each other for the alien attack. Wars broke out over the wreckage of ships. Millions died from radiation sickness. The council was pleased. Everything was going as predicted. The humans were destroying themselves. Then the signals stopped. At first, the monitoring stations thought their equipment was broken. They ran tests. They sent probes. Everything was working perfectly. Earth was simply not transmitting anymore. They have regressed, the representative told the council. Their technology has failed. They are returning to a primitive state. Os was not so sure. He requested permission to send a scout ship closer. The council refused. The quarantine was working. Why risk disturbing it? So Os watched and waited and worried. On Earth, humanity had made a choice. After the first 3 years of chaos, a woman named Wei had stood before the United Nations. She was a Chinese admiral, one of the commanders who had coordinated the nuclear strike. She had lost her husband and 2 sons to the water harvesting. She had nothing left but her anger and her mind. They are watching us, she said. Every signal we send they hear. Every rocket we launch they see. They are waiting for us to kill ourselves so they do not have to do it. The assembly was silent. We must stop giving them what they want. No more radio, no more visible satellites, no more wars. Wei's voice was cold and steady. We must become ghosts. We must build in secret. And when we are ready, we must make them pay for what they did. It took 2 years to convince everyone. Some nations refused to give up their broadcasts. Some leaders could not accept working with their enemies, but Wei was patient. She showed them the autopsy reports. She showed them what the aliens had planned to do with Earth's population. She showed them the council records, decoded from the crashed ships, that described humanity as resources to be harvested. One by one, the nations agreed. Earth went dark. Underneath the surface of the moon, construction began on the largest shipyard in human history. The radiation on Earth had one benefit the Council never expected. It made humans very, very motivated. Young people who knew they might die of cancer in 20 years worked 16-hour shifts. Scientists who had spent their careers competing now shared every discovery. Engineers from countries that had been enemies for centuries built engines together. They called themselves the Ghost Fleet. Admiral Wei, now 60 years old but still sharp as a blade, commanded the project. She had spent 15 years studying the technology. She had improved it. The alien faster-than-light drives left energy trails that could be tracked across light years. Human engineers had found a different way. They called it fold space. Instead of pushing through the universe, they simply folded it, stepping from one point to another like crossing a room. It left no trail. It made no sound. It was invisible. The first Spectre-class carrier launched in year 14. 200 more followed within the year. Each ship carried weapons that combined human creativity with alien technology, missiles that could think for themselves, energy shields that absorbed attacks and turned them into power, communication systems that used quantum entanglement, impossible to intercept or decode. On the day the fleet was ready, Wei gathered her captains in the command center beneath Luna. "The Dominion took 17 million lives when they attacked our coasts," she said. Her voice carried no emotion. She had buried her emotions years ago. Their records called it acceptable collection losses. They did not even count us as people. The captains listened in silence. Many of them had lost family in the attack. All of them had lost friends. "We are not here for revenge," Wei continued. "Revenge is emotional. Revenge is wasteful. We are here for justice. We are here to show the galaxy that humanity is not a resource. We are here to make them afraid." She activated the holographic display. 12 points of light appeared, scattered across space. "These are their military stations. Each one commands a sector of their territory. We will hit all 12 at the same time. No warnings, no demands. We appear, we destroy, we vanish. They will not know what hit them. They will not know where we came from. They will only know that something is hunting them." Captain, a young woman from Nigeria who had risen through the ranks on pure talent, raised her hand. "What about civilians?" Wei nodded. "Good question. We target military only. We do not kill those who cannot fight back. We are not them." The fleet launched that night. Earth sensors detected nothing. The Council's monitoring stations recorded nothing. 200 ships simply ceased to exist in one location and appeared in another, scattered across 100 light years. The attacks lasted less than 1 hour. 12 stations, each defended by warships and orbital cannons and shields that had never been broken, fell silent forever. The Ghost Fleet struck from angles that should have been impossible, using weapons they had never seen. They targeted power systems and communication arrays, leaving the stations dark and helpless but not destroyed. Wei wanted survivors. She wanted them to report what had happened. The Dominion sent an emergency message to the Galactic Council. They described attackers who appeared from nowhere, moved like shadows, and vanished before anyone could respond. They demanded immediate assistance. The Council did not believe them. "They have many enemies," the representative said. "This is clearly internal rebellion. We should not involve ourselves." Oz requested the censored data from the attacks. He studied it for 3 days without sleep. When he finally spoke to the Council, his voice was shaking. "It was the humans," he said. "I do not know how, I do not know when they built these ships, but it was them." "Impossible," said High Speaker Eth. "They are quarantined. They have no faster-than-light capability." "They did not use faster-than-light," Oz said. "They used something else, something we have never seen before, something we cannot track." The council dismissed his concerns. The quarantine was solid. The humans were contained. 3 months later, the went dark. The Ghost Fleet had not destroyed it. They had simply removed every piece of advanced technology on the planet. Power stations, communication towers, orbital defenses, all of it gone or disabled in a single night of precise strikes. When the sun rose on the sky carried a message. Human ships had burned words into the upper atmosphere, visible from the entire day side of the planet. You taught us what the galaxy considers acceptable, we learned. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were afraid. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Admiral Wei allowed herself a small smile. They had only just begun. The Collective was the oldest military power in the galaxy. They had crushed rebellions before they learned to write. They had destroyed civilizations before they crawled out of their oceans. Their fleet was legend. 4,000 warships, each one capable of burning a continent to glass in a single pass. When they fell silent, they did not wait for council approval. They mobilized everything. Fleet Commander Os watched his armada gather at the staging point near. He had commanded the Collective's forces for 2 centuries. He had never lost a battle. He did not intend to start now. The humans are clever, he admitted to his officers. They have surprised us, but cleverness is not enough. They have perhaps 300 ships. We have 4,000. This war ends today. His officers agreed. The numbers were overwhelming. Even if human technology was superior, which Os doubted, quantity had a quality of its own. The Collective would simply drown them in fire. The fleet moved toward Earth in perfect formation. Tactics had not changed in 800 years. They did not need to change. Nothing had ever challenged them. Commander Sarah watched them come. She stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, the same ship her mentor Wei had commanded in the first strikes. The old admiral had retired after the campaign, her body finally giving out after years of radiation exposure. But she had trained well. 4,000 ships, her tactical officer reported. Standard attack formation, they're not even trying to hide. Nodded, she had expected this. They were arrogant. They believed their reputation would win the battle before it started. They did not understand that humanity had spent its entire history fighting against impossible odds. How long until they reach optimal firing range? 14 minutes. Good, opened a channel to the rest of the Ghost Fleet. Only 200 ships, against 4,000. The numbers should have been terrifying. Instead, her crews were calm, ready. They had trained for this moment for years. All ships, this is Commander. They think they're hunting us. They think we're scared little primitives who got lucky against the... She paused. Let's show them what scared looks like. The Ghost Fleet vanished. On the flagship, alarms screamed. The human ships had simply disappeared from sensors. No energy signature, no engine trail, nothing. Find them, Os commanded. His form shifted with agitation, colors rippling across his body. They cannot have gone far. His sensor officers searched desperately. The humans were not behind them. They were not above or below. They were not retreating toward Earth. They were inside the formation. The Ghost Fleet had folded space directly into the heart of the enemy armada. Human ships appeared between vessels, so close their shields were almost touching. At this range, the Collective's long-range weapons were useless. They could not fire without hitting their own ships. The humans had no such problem. His voice was steady. All ships fire at will. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Ships died by the hundreds. Their formations, designed for long-range bombardment, fell apart as they tried to respond to enemies that were everywhere and nowhere. Human ships would appear, fire, and vanish before the Collective could target them. They would emerge again from a different angle, strike another target, and disappear once more. It was not a battle, it was a lesson. Fleet Commander Os watched his armada crumble around him. His flagship was one of the last ships standing, protected by the wreckage of its escorts. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "How?" he demanded. "How do you coordinate so perfectly? We detect no communications between your ships, no command signals, no tactical data. How do you know where to strike?" Commander's face appeared on his screen. She was young, he realized, so young, and she was smiling. "We trust each other," she said. Os did not understand. The collective was built on hierarchy. Information was power, hoarded and controlled. Officers did not share tactical data with subordinates. Commanders did not explain their plans to captains. Everyone knew only what they needed to know. Humans were different. Every captain in the Ghost Fleet had access to everything. Every tactical update, every sensor reading, every strategic decision was shared instantly through quantum links that they could not detect. Human officers did not wait for orders. They saw the situation, understood the plan, and acted. A species that had spent its entire history fighting itself had accidentally developed the most sophisticated distributed command structure in the galaxy. "You cannot win," Os said, though he no longer believed it. "The Council will send more ships, more fleets. You cannot fight the entire galaxy." "We don't want to fight the galaxy," replied. "We want the galaxy to leave us alone, but your council decided we were resources to be harvested. Your collective decided to exterminate us for fighting back." Her smile faded. "We did not start this war, but we will finish it." The Defiance's weapons charged. Os closed his eyes. In his 2 centuries of command, he had never expected to die at the hands of a species his people had dismissed as primitive. "Wait." His voice stopped him. "We're not going to kill you," she said. "We need you to deliver a message." Os opened his eyes. "What message?" "Tell the Council that humanity is willing to talk. We don't want their territory. We don't want their resources. We want justice for what was done to our world, and we want a promise that it will never happen again to anyone else." "And if they refuse?" His expression did not change. "Then we keep fighting, and we don't stop until every species in this galaxy understands that primitive does not mean helpless, that being weaker does not make you a resource, that every world has the right to exist without being harvested by those who are stronger." She cut the communication. The Ghost Fleet vanished, leaving Os alone among the wreckage of 4,000 ships. He sat in silence for a long time. Then he turned his damaged vessel toward Council space. He had a message to deliver. The Galactic Council received him 3 days later. They listened to his report. They watched the recordings from his ship's sensors. They saw their greatest fleet reduced to debris in 11 minutes. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Council considered doing something they had never done before. They considered surrender. High Speaker Eth called for a vote. The result was unanimous. They would sue for peace. But as Ambassador Os pointed out quietly, peace required 2 sides willing to negotiate, and humanity had made no demands except justice. The question was, what did justice mean to a species that had been marked for extinction? The Council was about to find out. The neutral station hung in empty space, far from any star system. It had been built centuries ago for exactly this purpose. A place where enemies could meet without advantage. A place where wars could end. High Chancellor Eth arrived with a delegation of 50 advisors, 12 bodyguards, and 3 warships hidden just outside sensor range. He was not taking chances. The humans had proven themselves unpredictable, dangerous. He needed every advantage he could find. The human delegation arrived in a single shuttle. No escort, no weapons visible, just one small vessel carrying one old woman. Eth watched her walk through the airlock. She was tiny by standards, barely reaching his chest. Her hair was white. Her face was lined with age. She moved slowly, carefully, like someone whose body had begun to fail. but her eyes were sharp, clear, alive with an intelligence that made Eth uncomfortable. "I am High Chancellor Eth of the Galactic Council," he said, using his most formal tone. "I speak for 12,000 worlds. I have the authority to negotiate terms on behalf of—" "I know who you are," the woman said. She did not bow. She did not show any sign of respect. She simply sat down at the negotiating table and waited. Eth felt his skin flush with anger. He had ruled the council for 300 years. No one interrupted him. No one dismissed his authority. But he remembered the he remembered 4,000 ships burning. He sat down. "You have me at a disadvantage," he said carefully. "I do not know your name." "Doctor," she folded her hands on the table. "I was born in a small town on the coast of South America. I was 6 years old when they came." Eth said nothing. "My parents took me to the beach that morning. My father wanted to teach me to swim. My mother brought a picnic." His voice was calm, steady, like she was discussing the weather. "They started harvesting the ocean at noon. The water just rose up into their ships. Everything in it came too: fish, boats, people." "I am sorry for your loss," Eth said. The words felt hollow even as he spoke them. "Are you?" Looked at him with those sharp eyes. "Your council classified our world as a resource. Your records called the 17 million people who died that day acceptable collection losses. You did not even count us as people." Eth had read those records. He had approved similar classifications himself. It was standard procedure. Primitive species were resources. Everyone knew this. Everyone except the humans. "The council wishes to discuss terms," he said, trying to regain control of the conversation. "We are prepared to offer significant concessions: territory, technology, reparations." "No." The word hung in the air. "I beg your pardon." "The council wishes to survive," said. "Those are different conversations. You are not here to negotiate. You are here because you are afraid. You are afraid because for the first time in 3,000 years, someone has shown you that you can lose." Eth's advisors shifted nervously. His bodyguards moved closer, but did not seem to notice. Or perhaps she simply did not care. "What do you want?" Eth asked. Reached into her coat and pulled out a small device. She placed it on the table between them. A holographic display activated, showing a document in a language Eth did not recognize. "This is a list," said. "Every species that has been classified as resources by the Council in the last 3,000 years. Every world that has been harvested. Every population that has been enslaved or exterminated because they had not achieved faster-than-light travel." Eth's blood ran cold. The list was long, impossibly long, page after page of names and dates and numbers. 847 billion, said. "That is how many individuals died because the council decided they were not people. That is how many lives were erased because they were inconvenient. You cannot expect us to." "I expect nothing from you," interrupted. "I learned a long time ago that expecting decency from the council is a waste of time. I am not here to ask. I am here to tell." She touched the device. The display changed, showing a massive structure orbiting a distant star. "This is the archive of atrocities. We are building it at the galactic core where every species can see it. Every name will be recorded. Every crime will be documented. Every victim will be remembered." Eth stared at the display. "You want us to confess?" "I want you to open your records, all of them. Every archive, every database, every classified file. We will document what was done. We will name every species that participated. And we will make sure the galaxy never forgets. This is unprecedented. So was the attempted genocide of our species." His voice did not waver. "So was the murder of 17 million people because our water was convenient to harvest. So was the enslavement of 800 billion individuals across 3,000 years." Eth searched for an argument. a counteroffer, anything that would give the Council some dignity in this surrender. And if we refuse? Smiled, there was no warmth in it. The battle of took 11 minutes. Do you know why we stopped? Why we let us live to deliver our message? Eth shook his head. Because we can be patient, because we can wait, because we have learned to plan not for years but for generations. Leaned forward slightly. If you refuse, we will continue, not just against every species that participated in the Council's crimes. We will dismantle your fleets one by one. We will isolate your worlds. We will make sure that every species you ever harvested knows exactly what you did to them. That could take centuries. We have time. His eyes never left his. My parents died 43 years ago. My brother died in my mother's arms as the water took them. I have spent every day since then waiting for this moment. Do you think a few more centuries will make us give up? Eth saw it then. The thing that made humans so terrifying, it was not their technology, it was not their tactics, it was their patience, their absolute, unwavering refusal to forget. They lived for hundreds of years. They had evolved beyond strong emotions, beyond grudges, beyond the primitive instincts that drove lesser species. They had learned to forget, to move on, to see the big picture. Humans had not. Humans remembered everything, every insult, every injury, every loss. They passed their memories down through generations, keeping their wounds fresh and raw and painful. They did not forgive. They did not forget. They simply waited until they were strong enough to respond. And now they were strong enough. You have one standard cycle to accept, said. After that, we stop asking. She stood up and walked toward the airlock. At the door, she paused. I was 6 years old, she said quietly. I watched my family die. I spent the next 4 decades believing that no one would ever answer for what happened, that the galaxy simply did not care about people like us. She turned back to look at him. I was wrong. Humanity cares, and we will make sure the universe learns to care too. The airlock closed behind her. Eth sat alone in the empty room for a long time. His advisors asked questions. His bodyguards waited for orders. He ignored them all. Finally, he opened a channel to the Council. Accept all terms, he said, immediately. He had seen something in his eyes that he had not seen in 300 years of politics and war. He had seen truth. 12 years passed. The archive of atrocities was completed on a station orbiting the black hole at the center of the galaxy. It was visible from 1,000 star systems, a monument of light and memory that would last until the stars themselves burned out. 847 billion names were carved into its walls, every species the Council had destroyed, every world they had harvested, every life they had deemed unworthy of protection. The memorial broadcast continuously in every known language, a reminder that would echo across the galaxy forever. Never again, never forgotten. Ambassador Os arrived at the dedication ceremony feeling every one of his 450 years. He had outlived most of his generation. He had witnessed the rise and fall of the Council he once served. And now he stood in a place that would have been unthinkable just 2 decades ago. A place where former slaves stood equal to former masters. He found Admiral Wei near the observation deck, watching delegations arrive from across the galaxy. She was old now, her hair completely white, her body thin and frail. The radiation from Earth's first defense had finally caught up with her. Doctors gave her months, perhaps weeks. But her eyes were still sharp, still watching, still remembering. Ambassador, she said without turning, I wondered if you would come. I almost did not. Os moved to stand beside her. My people are not comfortable with this place. It reminds us of things we would prefer to forget. That is exactly why it exists. They watched together as a delegation of survivors approached one of the memorial walls. The Dominion had fallen completely. Their military was disbanded. Their empire was dissolved. but their people remained, struggling to build something new from the ashes of their old ways. Some of them had helped construct the archive. They had spent years documenting their own species' crimes, recording every atrocity, every harvested world, every enslaved population. It was their choice, their penance. We gave them the option to forget, Wei said, to pretend their history never happened. Some species took that path, the did not. Why? Because forgetting is easy, living with the truth is hard, but it is the only way to actually change. She finally turned to look at him. Your species taught us that lesson. When you quarantined Earth, you expected us to forget our dead and move on. You expected us to accept our place as primitives who got lucky. You did not understand that humans do not forget. We cannot. It is not in our nature. As nodded slowly. We evolved beyond strong emotions millions of years ago. We thought it made us superior, wiser. We did not realize that emotions serve a purpose. Memory serves a purpose, Wei corrected. Anger serves a purpose. Grief serves a purpose. They remind us that some things should not be accepted, that some wrongs demand an answer. She smiled faintly. My husband used to say that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, but justice is a gift we give to everyone who comes after. You lost him in the first attack. And our two sons. Wei's voice was steady, but As could see the pain behind her eyes. Old pain, familiar pain, pain that had never faded, only settled into something she could carry. I spent 30 years building the fleet that avenged them, but vengeance was never the goal. What was? Wei gestured at the crowded station around them. Species from every corner of the galaxy, many meeting as equals for the first time in their histories. Former masters learning to see their former slaves as people. Former slaves learning that they had the right to demand respect. This, she said, a galaxy where no one gets to decide that another species is too primitive to protect, too weak to save, too inconvenient to remember. She turned back to the observation window. We did not fight for revenge. We fought so that no one would ever have to feel what we felt, so that no child would ever watch their family die and know that the universe did not care. As was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had troubled him for years. What happens now? Your species has changed everything. The younger races look to you for guidance. The old powers fear you. What do you intend to do with that influence? Wei laughed softly. It was the first time As had ever heard her laugh. We intend to do nothing. Nothing. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want tribute or territory or worship. We want to be left alone to build our own future. She shook her head. But we will be watching. And if anyone tries to go back to the old ways, if anyone decides that might makes right and the weak exist to serve the strong. Her voice trailed off, but her meaning was clear. You will respond, As finished. We will remind them. Wei's smile faded. We learned something during the war, something we should have understood long ago. The galaxy is not cruel because cruelty is natural. The galaxy is cruel because no one ever stood up and said, enough. No one ever made the cost of cruelty higher than the cost of kindness. She pointed at the archive, visible through the observation window. That memorial is not just about the past. It is a promise about the future, a promise that humanity will never forget, that we will always be watching, that the weak will always have someone willing to fight for them. Commander Sarah approached them, her uniform crisp despite her own gray hair and lined face. She had taken over the Ghost Fleet after Wei's retirement, leading humanity's forces through a decade of tense peace. Admiral, she said quietly, it's time. Wei nodded and straightened her shoulders. For a moment, As saw the young commander who had stood on the bridge of the Defiance and challenged an empire. Then the moment passed, and she was an old woman again, walking slowly toward the dedication platform. The crowd parted for her. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species, all watching the small human who had changed everything. Wei did not give a speech. She simply read a name, the first name on the memorial, a child from a species that had been harvested before humans even discovered fire, a child whose people no longer existed, erased from history by a council that had deemed them inconvenient. Then she stepped aside and the next person came forward, a survivor who read the name of a victim his own species had killed, then a who read a name from one of their harvested worlds, then a human. One by one, they read names. The ceremony would continue for months, years, however long it took to honor every single life that had been lost. As watched until he could watch no more. Then he walked to the observation deck and stared at the swirling void of the black hole. "We thought we were gods," he said to no one. "We thought we had moved beyond the primitive emotions that bind lesser species. We were wrong." He heard footsteps behind him. Commander stood at his side. "Your people can still change," she said. They are trying. Change is not easy, but it is possible. And if we cannot change," looked at him with eyes that held no malice, no hatred, no desire for revenge, only patience. "Then we will be here, watching, waiting, remembering." She put a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of comfort that surprised them both. Humanity learned to be patient, ambassador. We learned to think in generations. We will still be here in 1,000 years, still watching, still remembering. That is our gift to the galaxy. A gift. The gift of consequences, smiled gently. The gift of knowing that what you do matters, that your choices have weight, that the universe cares about how you treat others because someone is always paying attention. She walked away, leaving As alone with his thoughts. Through the observation window, the archive of atrocities blazed with light, broadcasting its message to every corner of the galaxy. 847 billion names, 847 billion lives that would never be forgotten. And somewhere in that memorial, As knew there was an empty section, space reserved for future names, future atrocities, a reminder that the work was never truly finished. But for the first time in 3,000 years, there was hope. Hope that the section would remain empty. Hope that the galaxy had finally learned its lesson. Hope that when the strong looked at the weak, they would see not resources to be harvested, but people to be protected. Because humanity was watching. And humanity never forgot.